Vinyl Community, Jeff here again. Time for a contest entry. This time around, we're looking at Daryl over at Northern Vinyl Guy, celebrating 1 year in the VC, and so he's throwing a contest. So we are going to answer a handful of questions. Interesting little contest. The prizes. Wait till you hear the prizes. Interesting, fun stuff. But we're not in it for that so much. We're in it to promote other channels, just to support and promote other channels. So check it out. I'll have a link below for sure. So let's get into this. First question is he wants to show a lyric or something with a unique, unusual, or strange word or term in there. I kind of went a little for actual titles of songs. I mean, the songs themselves are going to have weird words too, but unique words too. And you may find this in certain genres of music, but I'm looking at Tourniquet, the thrash metal type band from the 90s that had this album out called Pathogenic Ocular Dissonance. Now, those are big words that we don't always use. If you're in a medical field, you may be more familiar with them, but the album itself is full of such terms. So you've got songs with titles like Impending Embolism, Pathogenic Ocular Dissonance, of course, Ruminating Virulence, Spectrophobic Dementia, Gelatinous Tubercles of Purulent Ossification, Incommensurate, Exoskeletons, Descent into the Maelstrom, The Skeezic Dilemma. Anyway, lots of words that you don't use in every day in your language found there. And the album prior to this has just as many. I almost pulled that one, but some of these were even more interesting. So I went with this album. So there you go. Some unique words that you don't hear all the time in an album there. So next up, a pressing Not From Your Country. Now he showed one that was kind of interesting how it went through, and it was a local band that pressed in another country because of questionable content. This is not questionable content, but a very similar situation. This is a U.S. band, Arizona, New Mexico, I believe, back in the 90s. And this was pressed on vinyl and CD officially because it was just more or less demos from the band, but it was pressed over in Greece. So we got Cross Metal from Above, and this was, so there are some great labels over there, and this is from Steel Legacy Records. And so they pressed this U.S. band on vinyl and CD. And this was back in 2006 or so. And I haven't shown this before. When did this come out? Anyway, it's 330 copies, and I got 251. I recently acquired this. I haven't shown this before because I just recently got this in the mail. Found a copy online that I grabbed. Because back when this came out, I was not into vinyl at all. I did buy the CD of this reissue back in the day. And then I realized later on, somebody showed it online. I said, oh, yeah, there was a vinyl of that. So I went and tracked one down. And was very surprised to find one for a decent price this late in the game. Near mint condition, and again, there was only 330 of them pressed, so glad to get that. So there you go. It is a U.S. band pressed in Greece and then imported back to the U.S. for me to buy. So next, a band from a border state. Now, he's from Canada. He wanted something, a province or something, but for the U.S., he said it could be a border state. And in other places, it could be other options. So I looked around. I'm in Virginia. I know some bands in Virginia that have stuff out there. And I immediately just started kind of looking at the border states. So we're bordered by, of course, North Carolina, and then Kentucky, West Virginia, and Maryland. And I see that Clutch is from Maryland. I don't show a lot of Clutch because I only recently got into Clutch thanks to Aaron over at his channel, and have picked up some stuff along the way. This is such a great album. This is one of their more recent ones. Love it. So I wanted to show them. They are from up in Maryland. So there you go. A band from a border state to Virginia here. Now, he wanted to see something music paraphernalia. Something. Now, I've got tons of books written by bands, biographies. I've got knickknacks. I've got comic books about bands. I've got tons of Kiss paraphernalia. Toys, figures, stuff like that. But I went a little something that was just over here laying around that was a little more odd, and that is a handful of Bibles from Stryper. So Striper, if you're familiar with them, you know, Christian metal band, been around since the 80s. Most of these are from the 80s, and they would take and throw these little New Testament Bibles out in the audience. They put a Striper sticker on it, throw it out to the audience. And I have caught quite a few over the years. Most of these from the 80s. I believe these 4 came from shows in the 80s. I saw them probably half a dozen times between 85 and 87 or so. And so most of those are from that. And I think this one is more recent, probably from 2003. It is autographed. I believe they threw out some of these autographed ones. And I think this was during the reunion tour. But I have picked up 5 of these over the years. And they are on my shelf here. So I thought that'd be a cool, interesting little paraphernalia that's a little different. Definitely music related because they were thrown out at a concert. So up next is Show an 80s album. He's a big fan of the 80s. I'm a big fan of the 80s. Not hard to do. I went with something a little less, 80s hair metal or whatever you might think I would do. And it's not that I haven't shown this particular artist or band numerous times. People know I love him, but Adam and the Ants. Back in the 80s, I was pretty much a metalhead. What was hard rock, makeup, glam, metal, whatever you want to call it, back in the early 80s, I was mainly into that. But there were a few bands that tickled certain spots in me that were not metal, and one of them was Adam and the Ants. And so I show this because it is one of the oddities in the 80s of bands that I listened to. And I grew up listening to a lot of the stuff from the, there was a lot of pop rock type stuff, the REO Speedwagon, Queen, stuff that was a little less metal. But when it comes to just flat out pop type stuff, I hated most pop stuff back in the 80s. But I loved Adam and the Ants. And so there you go. An 80s album, Adam and the Ants, a little bit different than what I usually have. Now, next up, he wants to know some struggles in collecting. Now, he being from where he's at, it's hard to get records up to where, and I get that. Some of these smaller places I know don't have places, record stores. Here in America, here in a fairly big city near Virginia Beach, I have 3 main record stores. The fourth one, which is 4 main record stores within 10 miles of me on either side. You span out a little bit further, take it 20, 25 miles to the next couple towns over, there's a couple more. So I don't have a problem getting those. And of course, mail order is easy and peasy. My biggest struggle is overkill, too much. I have that collector's mentality that where I'll buy a band, album that by a band, and then I end up really liking it. Maybe it's a band I'm not familiar with. Well, then I want to go out and get their entire discography. I'm one of those ones that wants to have the completist mentality. And I really have to control that. And sometimes I'll buy stuff just because, I've heard of that band or I want to check it out. And then, like I say, then you like it and you start buying other stuff. But then you have to really stop and think, is it something I'm going to have long-term play with, or is it just kind of nice to have? Is it something you're collecting, or is it something you buying to listen to? I struggle with that a lot. And so I try to be more selective. I say that, and then I end up blowing it. Especially when you go to like a thrift store and you find an album that you probably wouldn't seek out. You probably didn't go looking for it, but you're like, oh, that looks interesting. Let me check it out. And then you check it out and you're like, well, now that I have that, I probably should check out some of their other stuff, and you start buying it. So my struggles are with buying too much filler. I probably could easily trim down half my collection and still be happy and have more music to listen to for the rest of my life than needed. So yeah, the art of collecting too much is my struggle. And it's so easy to find things online and buy them. It's so easy. There's so many thrift stores around here. It's just so easy to buy stuff and to buy filler stuff and to buy stuff too much. So that's a struggle that I need to get under control. I haven't bought a whole lot recently since December-ish. Mainly, my wife left her job and was out of work for about 5 weeks. Just started a new job, so we're kind of behind the 8 ball there, catching up after the holidays and all of that. So I have really been pulling back for the past couple weeks, but who knows if that's going to be controllable much beyond once things get back on the line. Okay, next up, a grail that you would like in 2025. Now, this is a grail, but this is a grail for me, but I don't know, is this cheating because it's not something that exists? I'm looking for Dream Theater's Train of Thought, Systematic Chaos, and the Black Clouds album, all of which have been released on vinyl, all of which are impossible nowadays to afford, but I think all of which are poised to be reissued in 2025. And I say that because they just recently, a couple months ago, put out a box set of like the first 4 or 5 albums by Dream Theater, and they just reissued those individually just about 2-3 weeks ago, 3 weeks or so ago. So I finally, those were grails, I finally got the second and third Dream Theater album that I have not had for all these years. So I'm hoping that they will continue that into this year, and that we will eventually get another batch, and that we will eventually get into the latter albums by Mike Portnoy, The Train of Thought, and the like I say, all of those albums. So I'm hoping that we'll see those in 2025, maybe 2026. I don't know how many they'll put out, if they'll do another box set or if they'll put them individually, but I am hoping to acquire the last few studio albums in my Dream Theater desired collection. Again, want to have them all. My goal is hopefully this year they'll release those 3 albums that I need to complete the studio albums that I have. Another one that I hope gets released this year is I Need Balance by Van Halen. I missed the box set. It disappeared so quick when the box set 2 came out. So when For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge came out, I bought that as an individual. I hope they do Balance, and that's the only other Van Hagar album that I need to complete that. So that's another grail. It's just something to fill in the collection of that particular band. Now, moving on. A surprise album that you'd be surprised I have. And this is hard because I've shown so much stuff. If you followed me for any length of time, I've shown so much stuff. But here's one that I got this a handful of years ago, and I haven't really shown it since. And it may be surprised because I don't buy a lot of modern artists. I don't buy a lot of modern... when it comes to pop and stuff, I'm not a big pop person. And I only bought this because it was a fluke. Not that I don't appreciate modern music. I just have so many other things I buy that I don't buy a lot of modern music. But I picked up an Imagine Dragons album. How did I pick up an Imagine Dragons album? It was at a thrift store. It wasn't like I went out looking for it. It was at a thrift store, and it was in great condition a handful of years ago. It was laying on the shelf at a thrift store. It cost me $2. It's a double record, so I bought it. Does it get played a lot? Not a ton. I have listened to it. It's not that I don't appreciate their stuff. Actually, we've been pushing to have the band maybe play some of their bigger hits. It just hasn't happened yet. So I'm not as in tune with a lot of the modern music to know what's hip out there. So I don't run out and buy a lot of this at this point. But there you go. Maybe you're surprised to find that Jeff has an Imagine Dragons album in his collection. Yes, he does. The last one is a shout out, but he wants a non-VC type shout out. So what are some of the other things I watch? Some of the things I watch multiple times a week, and it's just for entertainment. Sometimes you just need to zone out, and I do that a lot. And I watch like Jack Vale and his Pooter videos, where he goes around Walmart and poots, and you get to see the people's faces. And there are a couple other guys that do those too, but Jack Vale is the one that pops up the most, and he's the one I appreciate the most because he's just such a kind-hearted person. And I love seeing it when he reveals to him what's going on. I love seeing the connection he makes with people. I love seeing the smiles, and the occasional people that get aggravated with it. But for the most part, it's just not only hilarious, but it is heartwarming. And some of the stories that he's run into and the people he's run into who appreciate his work. And I love it when people recognize him, but just all of that, it makes it just worthy of watching, in my opinion. And he puts a new video up, it seems like every day, but maybe it's every couple of days. Another one I watch 2 or 3 times a week is Zeducation, Tyler Zed. And a lot of that, while it does border on political stuff, it's a lot of memes. He'll show a lot of memes, and it's funny to see memes. And I like, on social media. So he goes over and he's like a meme review. And while there are a lot of political ones that pop up in there, there's also a lot of just different stuff, all kinds of funny stuff. And so it's funny. And that's another just kind of a break from the regular routine to watch something a little, humorous here and there. So there you go. That's all the questions, I believe. Hope we got them all there. Anyway, check out Daryl's channel, link below. Jump on this contest and, have some fun. It's some fun stuff. We'll see you later. Rock on. and rock hard.